Hey everyone, welcome back to FilterGrade. Today we're taking a look at Lightroom Mobile. This tutorial will be recorded on an Android device, but everything in this tutorial will apply to iPhones as well. Now if you already know the desktop version of Lightroom, then this mobile version should come pretty naturally to you, but there are a few key differences. Now when you first open the app, you'll need to import or take a photo. Your device's photos are not automatically picked up by the app. Once you import a photo from your gallery, you'll find it in the All Photos folder. Open the folder and select a photo to start the editing process. Now before you do anything else, you could just click on Auto. This will adjust the image in a way that Lightroom thinks is best, but you probably won't be using it. After all, you downloaded this app to have more power over your editing, so you should use it. But if you really need a quick adjustment, I guess it's there. So the first tab you'll want to start at is Light. This tab includes exposure, contrast, highlights and shadows, and whites and blacks. Every image is going to be different, but I'll go through a quick guide on how to use these tools. Exposure adjusts the overall brightness. At least right now, I'm happy with my exposure on my image. Contrast is the relationship between the lightest and the darkest point. This image has very low contrast by default, so I'm going to increase the contrast quite a bit. Highlights are the lightness of the bright points in the image. Our sky is kind of blown out in this picture, so we can adjust the highlights down a bit. Overexposed parts of the image like this can't have much detail saved from them, but bringing the highlights all the way down does help get a small amount of detail back from the fence around the sky. Shadows controls the lightness of the dark points in the image. I'm going to use this to increase the overall contrast a bit more to darken the fence and trees in the background. The whites and blacks controls adjust what the whitest white and blackest black are. For this image, I'm pretty happy with the tone of the whites, but we'll turn down the blacks a little bit to get a darker background. Also in the Light tab is Curves. Curves are a bit more of an advanced way to adjust lighting. The left side of this chart covers the darks and the right side covers the lights. The midtones will of course be in the middle. This basically lets you adjust your contrast to a more fine degree. Most edits can benefit from what's called an S-curve, so we're going to show how to create one. Tap to create a point on each of the 3 middle intersections on the grid. Now we should have 5 dots on this line. Now drag the mid-lows down and the mid-highs up. This is a basic S-curve, but going too far with curves can have drastic and unwanted effects. Feel free to experiment around on your image, because this can dramatically change what the picture looks like. This can create massive color changes in your image and give you a lot of control, and of course you can also adjust the curves individually for red, green, and blue for even more control. You can create a similar S-curve on each of these 3 colors to bring out better colors in your whole image, or change it up if you would like to have one color stand out compared to the others. Speaking of color, now we can move on to basic coloring. This includes temperature and saturation. We can set an automatic white balance by using the eyedropper tool to set our white point. This will adjust temperature and tint automatically and give us a good starting point. Even though the wall on the left side in this shot is not actually perfectly white, I'll set it as the white point, and we can see that the tool makes the image a little warmer to compensate. I actually like how this looks, so I'll keep it. You can easily adjust the temperature and tint manually from here. Saturation and vibrance are similar concepts, but do have some differences. Saturation boosts every color in an image. Vibrance boosts the least saturated colors first. I'm going to reduce the saturation slightly and then increase the vibrance by quite a bit. This will result in a vibrant green image without blowing anything else out. If we only increase the saturation to achieve our bright greens, other colors are going to pop out too much and we'll get some distortion. Notice the ugly yellows around the fence. They are much more pronounced when we just increase the saturation, and we don't want that. Color mix is where the real power is. This lets you select a color range and adjust only that color range. This lets you completely change an entire color or change its saturation. For example, in our image, we mostly have green. By selecting green and adjusting the hue, we can dramatically change our image by seeing the plant and grass changing to either more cyan or more yellow. One thing we can do here is change the fence color. We can do this by selecting the orange range. I like pushing it a little bit more towards the reds, so that it's a darker and richer wood tone that contrasts better against the green of the plant. You can adjust every color range this way to get your desired look. One other thing I want to do here is try to adjust the bright hose in the background. That lives in the cyan range, and I can adjust the hue to the green side and bring the saturation way down, so that it just kind of blends into the background instead of standing out as an unnecessary focal point. A great way to figure out what each of these color ranges contains is to just select it and drag the hue around to see what you notice changing colors. You can always set it back to 0. The Effects tab adjusts a few other visual settings. Texture will change how smooth the image is. If we bring it all the way down, we get a really soft and dreamy look. If we bring it all the way up, some of the foreground texture in our image pops a bit more, and the texture on the wall is also a lot more pronounced. A little bit of additional texture should serve our image well. Clarity adjusts the sharpness of the midtones. In our image, dropping the clarity results in a lot of softness while retaining some sharp edges in the foreground. If we increase the clarity, then the image gets sharpened, especially in the background, and the image overall seems to get brighter in order to create the necessary contrast to make the textures pop out. Dehaze is similar to contrast. The difference is that Dehaze adjusts the contrast in smaller regions rather than the entire image. This image doesn't really have any haze to speak of, so adjusting this results in an overall brightening or darkening of most of the image, which I don't think we want. Vignette will create a black or white halo around the edges of the image. A small vignette can draw focus in an image and make it more dramatic. Dragging to the left will create a black one, and dragging to the right will create a white one. Once we create a vignette, we'll unlock all of its settings such as midpoint, feather, and roundness. Midpoint adjusts how far in the vignette is, feather adjusts how strong or weak the fade is, and roundness is how circular or square it is. The last setting on this tab is grain. This will add film grain to the image to give it a more vintage look. You can then adjust the size and brightness of the grain to customize it further. In the Detail tab, we can adjust sharpening and noise reduction. Increasing sharpness will increase the edge contrast between items, making the image pop out in this way. Noise reduction, as it suggests, can help reduce any noise or grain in your image. The Optics tab lets you remove chromatic aberration if your image has any, but more than likely you won't really need to apply this. The Geometry tab can help align an image that isn't arranged correctly. You can distort it, adjust various angles, and offset the image on the canvas. Lightroom Mobile also lets you use selective editing. In the Selective tab, you can add an area either by painting it or creating a shape mask. Then you can use all of the editing tools we just mentioned to edit only that highlighted section. This is one of the most powerful tools in Lightroom and lets you edit things like faces or to pop out the color of something specific in your image. Lastly, let's look at the Presets tab. These are preset filters that come included with Lightroom, but you can also add others from third parties. We have a video on how to import more presets, and as you can see, I already have a set of free presets from FilterGrade installed and ready to use. These presets will override your other settings, so they're more than just filters. They'll adjust all of your lighting, color, and effects settings. Great, now your image is complete, but what do you do with it now? It's automatically backed up to the cloud, and you'll be able to continue editing your project in Lightroom Desktop. Otherwise, if you'd like to export your photo, click on the share symbol to export to your device, and you can also share a link to the project for collaboration. Once you're done, you can click on the back button to return to the main menu. And that's our guide to Lightroom Mobile. The app makes it easy to do advanced edits on your photos, and the ability to bring the project into Lightroom Desktop extends that power. If you have any more questions about Lightroom Mobile or photo editing in general, let us know in the comments below, or subscribe to FilterGrade and check out our other videos to learn more. In the meantime, go ahead and experiment in Lightroom Mobile and see what you can create. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. And if you're looking for professional LUTs, Lightroom desktop and mobile presets, Premiere Pro templates, and more photo and video education, visit filtergrade.com today.